amputee. Where to start? At the very beginning? That is when I had my leg amputated, or before? The reasons I had my leg amputated. So for those who haven't heard it before, here's my brief history. I had a motorcycle accident when I was in my 20s. The damage was considerable. I was in hospital for about 6 months, with more to follow. So after about 3 years, I had roughly what I was going to carry around into my amputation in my 40s. I was left with 10 degrees of ankle movement, immobilized toes, and very poor circulation, hypersensation, or no sensation, and a shrunken, disfigured stick of a leg. So after years of chronic problems, some of them turning acute, when a certain surgeon suggested the possibility of amputation, there was no doubt in my mind what I should do. Not only was I suffering from these chronic problems, but as a young man, I was highly embarrassed about the look and the visual appearance of my leg and the social impact it had on my life. Basically, I was embarrassed to show my damaged leg in front of anybody, especially girls. I recently heard a medical term, body dysmorphia, which in many of these cases of elective amputation, it is a consideration often overlooked. Although I was happy with my decision of amputation, the doctors indicated a serious caveat. Although I'll be able to rid myself of the limb, it would be extremely likely, in my case, that I would suffer from phantom pains, which, as indicated by the doctors, could be as seriously disabling as the original limb. We discussed this at length, and the solution, unconventional as it was, like quite a lot of things I do, was to dispose of the amputated limb physically. That is, once the amputation had been done, and I had fully woken from the anaesthetic, I'll be allowed to dispose of my amputated leg in the hospital incinerator. As this was not the norm, as you'd expect, much red tape had to be cut, but the surgeons were behind me, and the hospital allowed this unconventional action. It probably should have been a little weirder than it felt, but the whole point of the plan was a physical, quantifiable, actual putting a line through the problem. I actually saw and disposed of the limb that had caused so much pain and anxiety over the last 10 years. So life as an amputee began. Although my beginnings were good, after having such a damaged and unfeeling leg, the transition to an artificial limb, in walking terms, was easygoing. And my prosthetist was surprised at my easy adaptation to a limb. This was probably because it was not unlike the damaged limb I've been walking on for so long. But the systems available in those days were vastly different to the technology and the limbs available now. My confidence grew with the wearing of an artificial limb, and my usage increased, but I soon began to realise the restrictions imposed on me as an amputee. With usage, sores quickly began to appear. In those days, the limb was held on either with leather straps or the supracondylar system. That means it kind of gets smaller here, rather than falling off your knee. Which basically meant that the limb still stayed on with goodwill alone. And under the under armour was just cotton socks. Silicone had not made its way into stumps yet. The limb felt heavy, generally uncomfortable, and was always being left behind in the mud, much to the amusement of my farming colleagues, which is not only painful, but embarrassing and very inconvenient. Despite having its lighter moments, like setting fire to my leg, I cannot overemphasize the debilitating effect poorly fitting limbs have. I was constantly tired and bad-tempered. But luckily for me, the Exeter Mobility Centre recognised my holistic requirements. Also luckily for me, on the mobility team was one Sandy Sexton and David House. And a man in Iceland had been doing some thinking into artificial requirements, and along came the IceROS system. I was chosen to trial this system, which was demonstrated on me by Toby Carlson. The leg and socket were made and fitted in one day, which in those days of a 3-week wait was radical. Conversely, nowadays you have to wait 4 weeks for an appointment. So overnight, I had for the first time a well-fitting limb that felt light. As soon as a limb feels right, it feels light. It's no longer heavy. And most importantly, I could catch my sheep again. With increasing mobility, my whole attitude and self-perception as an amputee changed, as did my self-confidence, and new worlds opened to me. Consequently, I realised and again found my once given up passion for running, and it was a real possibility. Quickly I overtook the limitations of my limb and was giving increasingly higher activity level prosthetics, thanks to the attention and holistic care and approach of the mobility team. It must be added here that NHS funding was more available at this time. This leapfrog between fitness and limb performance carried on and does so even up until now. Many opportunities and adventures followed. At first, my running was covert, not as easy as you would think in the rural Devon lanes and byways. Often on hearing a car or seeing someone approaching on the path, I would actually hide. Why? Because I was embarrassed. Amputees weren't supposed to run, not in those days anyway. As my ability improved, so did my confidence. I was running on a pin system then, which meant after 3 or 4 miles I had to stop, remove my sleeve and wipe the sweat and re-don. And that was really frustrating if you're competing in a run. My first actual run was the Windsor Park 5 kilometre. The run was for amps only, amputees only, and there's a fair few of us. At the start line, I took a spare leg with a trainer on, covered in a towel. And so ready, steady, go, and I ran off, leaving this one leg standing there. Much to the amusement of all the spectators, but the huge embarrassment of my family who had to retrieve the leg when I had gone. Obviously, my confidence was growing. There simply wasn't enough runs locally around, solely directed amputees, so I entered a normal run, the Team Valley Toddle, very local. About the volume. I thought it was a thunderstorm actually.
It's a bit windy.
Where was I?
The end of the run.
Oh yeah, that's right, the real run. I'm going to find my place now. The Team Valley Toddle, a very local 10-miler, with plenty of hills. Although sore, I loved it, and the recognition of other competitors was something I didn't expect. You know, they really appreciated that I was running as an amputee, and I had the bug. I better not detail all my runs, you'd get bored and I'd run out of time. Firstly, I ran mainly road, but I prefer off-road, which I consider better for my ankle, knees, back, and it's more mentally stimulating. This led to longer and wilder runs, the Blackenstone Buster, the Drogo 10, and proudest of all, the Salcombe Coastal Marathon, and the Grizzly. And it does what it says on the tin, the Grizzly, it is Grizzly. Interspersed with these runs, I tracked to Base Camp Everest, climbed to the top of Mount Cotopaxi, the highest active volcano in the world. Both these were truly memorable events, and I was able to raise money for charities in return. Then I ran the Southwest Coastal Path, 630 miles, running each day for 5 weeks, but that's a story in itself. I don't know whether I could have achieved this run without the help and backing my partner Heidi. Needless to say, it was a life experience which has inspired many, both amputees and the able-bodied. Given the backing, I would like to run the Welsh Coastal Path, which is a little longer, 870 miles. Have we got any backers out there? Any sponsors? Oh, and I was honoured to have been chosen to carry the Olympic torch because of my charity work and for inspiring others. The day itself was brilliant, even though the actual carry was only about 100 metres, but the atmosphere was tangible. After the official run, I took the torch back to the Team Valley where I live, where I turned into 3, and 3 into 7, and 7 into 20, until running through the village, there must have been about 100 children, adults and dogs follow me, all sharing the torch. There was a very strong feeling of community. Days later, I was asked to tour local primary schools, not only showing the torch, but also talks about being an amputee, showing how limbs fit and how they work. Children can be very upfront with their questions, but that was the beauty of these events. The frankness and open conversation. Hopefully the days of "don't look, darling" are past. So from being a self-conscious, embarrassed, even ashamed of my gait and appearance, here was I standing in front of children and adults, and dare I say, embracing my condition. With the help and care of professionals and the love of those around me, I've come a long way. It's not always been beer and skittles, as some of the photographs show. But as an amputee, you must have resilience, perseverance, and return the help and care given. We still have a long way to go in terms of technology, awareness, and education. We have to fight NHS cuts. But there are also many countries and peoples in this world that are truly suffering, and we have to ensure that the service and technologies available to us can be more available to all. We do have the ability and the technologies to do this. We just need the will. That's my talk really, but I just want to go on to this patient's triangle. So we've got a pen here. And so that, I'm going to draw my own.
Oh, okay.
So this would be perceived as the perfect patient's triangle, wouldn't it?
The Australian version.
The Australian one. Okay. So we've got equal-sided triangle, haven't we? But is that the perfect patient's triangle, equal-sided? So if we look at, for instance, the if we look at the pirate's leg, okay. So on appearance, it's actually pretty short, isn't it? And on function, it's pretty short. Well, on appearance, actually, if you're a pirate, it's pretty good, isn't it? But on comfort, because actually this is a carbon fibre socket, is quite long. So, but it's not the perfect triangle, is it? So taking that forward, we'll go on to. It's not quite as easy. Water. Can I take this off? I can't take it off now. I've not got a pen.
A little pen.
A little pen, yeah.
Anyone got a little pen?
I can't take it off.
See, Diamond Sponsor's got a little pen. Little pen. Well done, Brian. Sorted. Tools to hand.
You can keep the pen. I can keep the pen.
There's a magic rabbit out of
What's next, Colin?
So hang on, wait, I'm not there.
No, I know. We're intrigued.
So then we go on to a wet activity leg. And so appearance doesn't matter. Comfort is good. I can walk down to the sea. But in terms of function, it fills up with water and I can't get the water out. So when I put this in my luggage, it's pretty rubbish, isn't it? It gets all my luggage wet. So I have to remember to turn it upside down. So the function is very short. It's got adequate appearance, and then it's also about confidence. So if you're worried about how your leg looks, then your confidence is going. But then if you're not worried about how your leg looks, you're not something over very good. You're not worried about how your leg looks, and you're just worried about function and comfort, then you're going to be wearing something like this, aren't you, that you can properly run in. So I'm just trying to not fix in your mind that the triangle should be equal-sided. It depends on the requirements of the patient. It should be, the triangle should suit the patient. So this hasn't got depending on which way you're looking at it, for the streetwear, it hasn't got the function, the appearance that you'd expect. But for your function actually running and returning the power you put into it, it is absolutely brilliant. It's excellent. But I can't worry how it looks. And that's about all I've got to say today. Have I run out of time yet?
Not a little.
Thank you very much.